Welcome back. It's another episode of the podcast. Tonight I am going to be discussing Star Trek Picard. I was delaying making a video about this because I didn't want to get too ranty. But I believe it's time. We're a few episodes in. I saw the first episode. I was very optimistic. It looked very good. It captured the look and feel of Star Trek, The Next Generation, properly as a way to carry it on, and thought that they were going to actually course correct Star Trek with this. I was mistaken. The first episode was good. Brought back all the feels, the nostalgia. Patrick Stewart, no complaints about the guy. Fantastic actor. A-list actor. He's great. I had no issues with him. However, after that first episode, it kind of just went off the rails badly, very quickly. Very, very quickly. I am very disappointed with this show so far from what I've seen. First episode was great. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. I was very, very happy with what they did with the first episode. Then the fuckery began. The poison of the new flavor of Star Trek started to kind of seep in. Didn't like it. The look is off. The first episode was good. Once they started doing the shit in space and started kind of doing the exploration of it, I lost interest. I lost my faith in it. The most recent episode that I saw had one of my favorite characters show up. 7 of 9, Jerry Ryan. She was a crush of mine when I was younger. I think every Star Trek person, any man that watched Star Trek had a thing for 7. It was just a thing. She was a very, very nice-looking, intelligent woman. And she was always one of my favorite characters. She was always interesting. The Borg were always one of my favorite things in the Star Trek universe. She was part of the Borg for a while, and she was an interesting character. She was kind of like, there's usually at least one character in a Star Trek series that is outside of the main thought process of normal people, as it were. Mr. Spock, the original series, okay? That what made him an interesting character was the fact that he was completely logical. Sometimes he had a hard time grasping some of the human condition because he was a Vulcan. Then you got Star Trek The Next Generation. You had Mr. Data, who was an android. So again, he was kind of wrestling, coming to grips with humanity. You had a couple characters on Deep Space Nine that were like that. T'Pol on Enterprise was the same way. Again, she was a Vulcan. Then you had 7 of 9 on Star Trek Voyager. And it was the same thing. She was kind of not fitting the way that a normal, the societal norms of a human being with the way that they work. So she was kind of outside of the normal space there and trying to fit in and trying to adjust and learn and all that stuff, which always makes for an intriguing character. They do have that as a recurring theme in Star Trek. Classic. Original Star Trek before the J.J. Abrams crap came along and the Discovery crap and all that. We're not even going to touch the bastardized versions of Star Trek. This Picard is enough bastardization for me to be talking about today. I'm a little upset. So you always got those characters that are, coming to grips, learning to be human, and it's fantastic. It makes for interesting character development. For that reason, 7 of 9 was one of my favorite characters. part of the reason why I was so pissed off. 7 of 9 was part of the Borg. Annika. Cold, logical, robotic. With good reason. Throughout the entire series. She started to kind of regain a little bit of humanity towards the end of the series. When she comes back, that must have been a hard few years for her, because she is a far cry from the way that we last saw her. It was pretty shocking, actually, the way they completely railroaded this character. I was not happy. Not one bit. So that's one of my most recent things that pissed me off about this show. 7 of 9, come on. Jesus. I'm gonna dial it back here. Let's go back to the first episode. We've got Picard. We've got a few guest appearances from other characters in Star Trek mythos. You've got Data as one of the characters that is in the backstory of this, which is alright, I guess. I'm gonna touch on something here. There was a comic called Star Trek Countdown that was a prequel to the J.J. Abrams films. So the way that the timeline worked was you had your proper Star Trek, then the Romulus incident, we'll just call it that, then Spock and Nero and those guys get transported back, they change the past and they make a divergent timeline, okay? So that shit that happened there at the end after Star Trek The Next Generation and the Next Generation movie still happened. Then when those guys got thrown back in time, it changed things and went to a different timeline. So the Kelvin timeline is different. Okay? The source material. Star Trek Countdown. It is a canon thing. It's a comic that was canon, that was supposed to be tied into this. That is supposed to be, it should be, if it's canon, tied to Picard, correct? I'm not going to spoil any of it for you, but go and discover what that's about. Go rewatch some of the first few episodes of Picard. See how badly they fucked up some of the stuff. This new Star Trek thing does not understand. If you have something there, don't fuck with it. Don't play with it. Don't adjust it. Don't change it. It's there. Don't retcon it. That's it. That's the final word. Don't retcon it. Don't change it. Don't fuck with it. Go forward. Take what had been done before and go forward with it. Carry it on. Don't go back and be like, well, you see. Well, you know, some of the Star Wars stuff is following this same pattern, and it just infuriates me. You have several streams of things that you can incorporate into the canon, but once it is in that bucket, it stays there. You can't retcon something afterwards. You can't be like, well, it is and it isn't. It is or it is not. Pick one. Please, so we know what the hell's going on. This is part of my nitpick with Discovery. It fucks with a lot of the canon. It disregards a lot of stuff. That, like, if Discovery is a prequel to the original Star Trek, a sequel to Enterprise, they done fucked up between those 2 points. Again, in decent Star Trek and good Star Trek, then you slam Discovery in the middle. Another chapter in the bastardization of one of my favorite franchises. And that's what it is. That's how I regard it. That. I think I'm going to do my next video just ranting for half an hour, yelling about Star Trek Discovery. I am not a happy camper with it. I tried. I really did try to like it. but they done fucked up. So there is some stuff that is out for debate, whether it's canon or what. Star Trek Countdown, check out that comic. Let me know what you think, because I'm really confused now. B4. The android that had Data's consciousness transferred into him. That we all assumed that he was going to just evolve and take over the Data thing. Some canon had even suggested that he becomes Data. Some stuff that might be in there, might not be. I'm very confused about Star Trek Countdown comic. Check it out. I'm just saying it might clarify some of my rage. Anyway. So I don't know what the fuck's going on there. But apparently, they disassembled B4. Used him to create more androids. And Dr. Bruce Maddox. I watched just not in preparation for this, actually. It was in queue for the episodes that I was watching of Star Trek The Next Generation. So about 3 nights ago, I got to watch Star Trek's The Measure of a Man. One of my favorite episodes. The thing with Star Trek The Next Discovery. Fuck. I'm sorry. I'm so tongue-tied tonight. Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm going to tell you something about Star Trek The Next Generation that I found very, very cool. You did not have to have a super exciting episode with lots of action in it to tell a good story. Star Trek The Next Generation. Some of the greatest episodes of that series did not have a bunch of action. Star Trek The Next Generation, Measure of a Man. I watched that episode a while ago. A few days ago. Again. Dr. Bruce Maddox. Starfleet, Dr. Robotics and stuff. He wants to disassemble Data, and his whole idea is to see how he ticks so they can make some more. And the whole episode, there isn't action in it. The whole episode is about the debate whether Data is a sentient being with rights or not. Is he Starfleet property, or is he his own thing? The whole episode is a very slow burn. Some people might even be bored by it. But it raises some very, very intriguing questions that they address. There's a good back and forth between the characters, and it is a great, great episode. Again, there's no shit blowing up. It doesn't need to. That is the backbone of Star Trek. You take character development, you take an intriguing story, you throw in some sort of question about humanity, questions that we all have, and you throw it out there and let the episode develop. And Measure of a Man was one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation for that reason. It wasn't an action-packed episode. It did not need to be. My absolute favorite episode of Star Trek The Next Generation was called Family. This is the episode after Picard got assimilated by the Borg, and he's coming to grips with the situation in his head. It messed him up. So he goes home to Chateau Picard, where he's hanging out with his brother, and he's having some family time, trying to figure out which direction he's going to go in his life after this point. Because his run-in with the Borg was not a very good situation. It made him question many things. It made him question his own humanity. It made him question his loyalty and his usefulness. And it was a very, very powerful episode. Again, there was no action. It wasn't an important thing. If you had good characters, good story, it was all about that. You didn't have to have lens flare and crap blowing up. It was cool. It was window dressing. It was very nice. But it's not an essential part. If you get the characters right and the story right, you're doing it right. That's why I like the first episode of Picard. Because it was a slow burn. It was not much going on. It was Picard doing his thing. And it was Picard following... It was the show following what he did. Catching you up to speed on some stuff. Letting you know that the Federation, I guess, de-evolved into a big old stinking shit pile after a few years. Which, if you watched some of the TNG movies, you kind of saw that coming. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. But there's some bad corruption in Starfleet. And that's kind of a cool thing, but also very unfortunate at the same time. They kind of paint themselves into a corner with that situation. So the first episode of Picard was fantastic. And the whole idea of it was they had B4, they disassembled him. Bruce Maddox made some more androids. This android named Dodge showed up looking for Picard for his help and assistance. She gets killed in front of him by these assassin guys. And Picard's like, oh man, I'm going to go find out what the deal is with this girl. Then it turns out that she is another android. Data's daughter, as it were. And that they're made in pairs. So there's another one. So Dodge was the name of the one. And it was Soji, I think. So yeah, Soji was the name of the other one. Identical twins. So it's just Picard looking for this other android. So I'm like, okay, cool. This is gonna be an interesting thing. It's gonna carry on one consistent storyline over it, whatever. It's gonna be a bit of a slow burn, whatever. Far too slow. Far too much crap that they throw in there. A little bit too much for me. They're throwing in way too many characters. The characters are crap. The other characters are crap. I'm just going to let you know. Okay? You got Picard. Awesome. You had Data in the first episode. They did what they did with him. Awesome. Okay? You got his situation with that. He does get, and I did make notes for this one because I can't remember anybody's fucking name today for some reason. Dr. Jurati. Dr. Jurati. Kind of an airhead blonde chick. She's a doctor, but she's a two-dimensional, stupid character to a degree. Bumbling idiot. Tilly. She literally is like a bad photocopy of Tilly from Discovery. That's what I noticed the other night. I was noticing very, very subtle nuances that were like, that's the exact same kind of shit Tilly says. That's the exact same kind of crap. Like, are they literally just recycling these characters? Dr. Jurati. Tilly. I don't like Tilly. In Discovery. I don't like Dr. Jurati in this show. Bruce Maddox, they brought him back for one episode. Hey, cool. Let's go find Dr. Bruce Maddox. Hey, we're going to figure out what's going on. Oh, they killed him off. Okay. That was quick. Another character I do not like. Raffi. Okay? I understand what they're trying to do with this show. The way that Gene Roddenberry had Star Trek originally was the fact that Star Trek was supposed to be a way to be an enthusiastic and optimistic look at the future. Okay? It's supposed to be an escape to show you the potential that humanity has. Okay? That after things go to crap, you can bring it back, you can start going out, exploring the stars, exploring yourselves, make yourselves better. Okay? If you watch Star Trek First Contact, Picard is having a back and forth with one of the characters in it. One of the characters in Star Trek Picard, or in Star Trek First Contact, is having a back and forth with him about money. How does this work? Your economy now. Well, we don't need that. We've come further than that. We do not require an exchange of money for goods and services because we don't operate that way anymore because it's the future and we're better. Okay, cool. Love it. That's great. Another callback that I'm going to give you. Star Trek 4. Kirk and Spock, the guy swearing. They refer to it as, what did they say? It's a no-no. It's something that people don't seem to do in the future anymore because it's old school, and it was the de-evolved people before they got out into space that would walk around swearing at each other. So it's just not a thing that happens in the Star Trek universe anymore. Okay? These things were set in place years ago. They dropped a fucking F-bomb. I was pissed. How the hell does an admiral from Starfleet drop an F-bomb when she is addressing Jean-Luc Picard? That should not happen. Ever. Also, the guy, the Chris Rios, the pilot of the ship, swears that guy's a huge douchebag. His ship is a piece of shit. It doesn't look anything like Star Trek. It looks like a bad Walmart exact brand ripoff of Star Trek. The whole look of the show, once they got out into space and started doing stuff, it was very Discovery-esque. What happened? We went from enthusiasm and going after being better. That was the backbone of Star Trek. Sure, they met up with some people that weren't very favorable. They had some pretty bad situations that they ran into. Yes. But there was always that flavor with it, where it was like, see the best in people, come out, do your best, and try to improve things. That's the way it was. Then you step right back into this, and apparently after the Romulan incident, everything just went to shit, and everything's super dark, and everybody's a piece of shit. No. I'm sorry. Some people might like their Star Trek super dark. I don't. DS9 was dark, yes. DS9 had a dark flavor to it, yes. Because it was a particularly tough run in time there. But it had the right flavor. The formula was correct with Deep Space Nine. Then you got into this crap with Discovery. Super dark. Make sure you explore their human elements that tie to what's going on today. Newsflash, assholes. The show isn't set today. Okay? This is set in a utopian future where they have taken care of all these fucking problems already. There is no need to go back and rehash. So what you're saying is humanity goes, takes a huge drop, then goes at a huge incline, plateaus at super awesome, then some problems with this supernova, the Hobus thing, and then everything just goes to shit again? No. That's only like 20 years. Everything fell apart in 20 years. You're telling me that. Something, I'm sorry, but the Star Trek universe is fucking huge. Something like Romulus getting wiped out has that dramatic of an effect on everything? I call bullshit. It's bad writing. Rick Berman and those guys, they took care of that shit back in the day. Now, they got a bunch of guys in a room writing this stuff. Half of them probably haven't even seen an episode. The infuriating thing for me is that I see that Jonathan Frakes is tied to this show. What the fuck? Seriously, what the fuck? It's far too dark of a flavor. They bastardized this. They did. Discovery was a bastardization of the brand, the franchise itself. It was terrible. It still is. The only thing that kept me interested in Discovery for a while was Captain Pike. Pike was awesome. He's gone now. They took him off the show. He's gone. Discovery's dead to me. I could care less. I really don't like that show. I'll do a whole half hour, 45 minute, maybe 2 hour rant on it, just yelling. Because I don't like it. It's crap. It's garbage. If you disagree with me, go back. Watch some original Star Trek. Watch some Star Trek The Next Generation. Watch some Deep Space Nine. There is a formula that they had. Even Enterprise followed that formula to a degree. They did sprinkle in a little bit of the dark here. They did start making it a little grittier. Why? I don't know. It doesn't need to be. The whole thing with Gene Roddenberry was looking forward, optimistic, get out there. Self-exploration, the exploration of the human condition on a spaceship traveling through space, meeting other beings from other planets, interacting. Sometimes it's good, sometimes there's problems, but these people are higher thinking and evolved people, and they strive for a peaceful way. Sometimes it's not a peaceful thing that they have to do to get through. You can have big ship battles and stuff like that happen. Yes, there is action. But there is always that consistent thing. There is an optimistic feel to Star Trek. That's the way it is. Even in its dark moments, it's an optimistic thing. They lost that with Discovery. Picard? I felt like if they were going to get back to that, they didn't. And as it went on, it just bothered me. Okay? It seems to me like people in the future in the Star Trek universe, like they bumped into some individuals that weren't that great, but they went to different planets that were at different evolutionary levels. So you go to a planet where there's a guy that's black on one side and white on the other, and white on one side and black on the other, and they're destroying each other because it's teaching you a life lesson about racism. That's that situation with that planet. That was an episode of Star Trek, the original series. One of my all-time favorite episodes. Check it out. It would teach you a lesson about something. That was the thing. It was always an optimistic viewpoint. Sometimes some bad shit happened. The bad shit was to teach you a lesson to kind of enrich it a little bit. This new Star Trek, It's lens flares and shit blowing up. It's people yelling at each other all the time. Which these people act completely opposite from the way that they acted in the Star Trek universe before. It does not fit properly. I look at it and it does not look. It does not have the same flavor as the original. It doesn't look the same. It does not feel the same. It doesn't even sound the same. Completely different feel, and it upsets me. This is my little rant. I know I'm trying to drop specific things here, but this is my thought. The Star Trek franchise. What the hell? Raffi, the one character in the show, dealing with substance abuse. Okay. Alright then, I guess. If you want to waste a bunch of time on that kind of crap, you want to talk about stuff that people are experiencing now, that's fine. I don't fucking care about this character's struggle with substance abuse, because it shouldn't be a thing at this point, as they've established with their shiny Starfleet that they had up to this point. There was issues, yes. But it doesn't all go to shit in 20 years. You can't tell me that. I'm looking for the utopia. I am looking for the striving for the best in everybody. To give you a little hope. That's what Star Trek was about. Sometimes they painted it with a dark texture sometimes of they painted strokes of dark in it. And it worked sometimes. But it's lost its optimistic viewpoint and everything else. It doesn't look the same. I might just sound like some guy that's not feeling the new version of it. I'll admit it, I'm not. I watched the original series as a child. I watched Star Trek The Next Generation. I watched Voyager. Deep Space Nine was one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I even dealt with watching Enterprise. I had mixed feelings about that. As the franchise started to get a little darker and a little grittier, I was iffy. That's not what it's about at its core. It's not supposed to be that way. Discovery, no. Picard, that first episode, I saw that some crap had gone on. And they were trying to explain, and they were catching up. And I'm like, okay, some crap has gone on, and it's kind of gotten crappy. I see that. I completely understand. But then, the further along they go, the darker and grittier and crappier everything is. I'm not watching Star Trek to be fucking depressed. It's supposed to be inspiring. Jean-Luc Picard, one of the most inspiring characters in sci-fi. He's a great man. Sure, he's flawed. Sure, he got assimilated by the Borg. He hit his bottom there with the Borg, and then he bounced back. He's one of my heroes. And the way that they're dealing with this character, it breaks my heart. It seriously does break my heart. One of the irritating points is the fact that they always have to drive it home that he's old. Go back and watch some of the episodes. It really, really bothers me. They bring it up all the time. Old man joke, old man joke, old man joke. Well, sorry. And it's the ageism thing. With a lot of the people nowadays. There's a fucking problem in society. Oh, old people. No. Jean-Luc Picard has an exemplary record with Starfleet. He has single-handedly gotten the Enterprise and its entire crew and the people he was saving out of world-ending situations. I don't know if you noticed, but he traveled back in time and stopped the Borg from assimilating the Earth. The entire fucking Earth. He's done quite a few great things. Yes, he's old. Because he's a badass and he didn't die. Anybody less effective at their captaining skills would have totally dropped out or been killed, along with the crew, ship destroyed, probably hundreds of times where Picard had to pull up his socks, pull through it, and be Jean-Luc Picard and win. He's a winner. That's the reason why he's such an old man, because he survived. He's a badass. How the hell are you going to disparage that character? Because he had the ability to power through what he powered through and survived to such an age. Why the hell are they sprinkling in old guy jokes? He got old, yeah, because he's a fucking badass. Many of his peers are dead already. The Borg probably took out a fuck ton of them 20-some years previous. I don't like the old people jokes in that show. They always bring it up with him. Why? I find it very, very problematic that they took Picard, who should have been on a pedestal, yeah, and they kicked mud in his face and dropped him down. Now he's just some piece of shit old man. That's a pretty sad take on things. Again, doesn't fit with the formula. I'm going to wrap this video up soon. I'll do another follow-up video. I just had to rant about Star Trek Picard for a while. I had quite a few points. I had a couple of notes written down here, but you know what? I just get so passionate about this stuff and these characters. You saw me clicking my pen? Because I get a little irritated talking about the way that they are wrecking one of my favorite things. It is truly one of my favorite franchises.